Thanks for coming out and watching the oxymoronic Reddit Professional Show, where I showcase the best and worst of the internet. Here I comment on brilliant and hilarious comment chains regarding dumb shit on the internet for you to enjoy. Make sure to subscribe, hit the little bell button so that you get notifications every time we come up with a new video. Enjoy this week's show.
I spent 21 years in prison for a murder I didn't commit, and my story was just made into a movie. Ask me anything. What was your first meal when you got out? It was a vegetarian place. But I barely remember it because I was more fascinated by the fact that there was no cord on my wife's phone anymore. How much money did they pay for those 21 years? 2 million. How much money is 21 years of your life worth? There's not enough in the world to buy you back that time. But there's sure enough to tie me over for the rest of it. Do you hate the dude who prosecuted you, or have you learned to forgive him? Not up. I've read that forgiveness has nothing to do with the other person. Forgiveness is about letting go of your anger, hatred, bitterness, and disappointment in someone else. You can't change other people. You can only change yourself and change how you feel. That's forgiveness, allowing yourself to feel peace, despite the actions of others. But what do I know? I didn't spend 21 years in prison for a crime I didn't commit. I'd probably be motivated to law-abiding citizens. Yes, but let's never shame people who don't or can't forgive, as though it is their own fault for feeling how they do. They are the victim. Who was the person that had the biggest impact on you while you were inside? That would have to be Carl King, my best friend. He was a fanatic, and that's how his family labeled him. He was always fighting for me. Did you confide in other inmates? Did they believe you were innocent? Yeah, my story didn't change. What else I could say? I was never going to admit to the crime, and in my mind, if I was telling my story, it hopefully would reach the ear of someone who would be able to help me. Thanks for the reply, and so glad you were exonerated. I think in this day and age we should all be more worried about this type of thing happening. Did they try to offer you a plea bargain initially? I feel for this man. I spent 3 days in jail for cops accusing me of having prescription pills that were for a dislocated shoulder at the time, for selling purposes. They even took me to a DR to verify if my shoulder in a sling was indeed broken, and still took me to jail and tried to charge me with a felony that would have put me away for 6 years. Had to hire an expensive attorney to get the case dropped. Total cost me over $10,000 with medical and legal fees from hiring an attorney and paying the hospital. They took me to $3,000 for the drive, simply asking Maine what was wrong with my shoulder to see if I was good for booking. All because these two bald-headed white cops thought a brown man with pain pills in an arm sling was just pulling a ruse to sell pills. 3 days was hell for me, and I can't imagine how those years must have felt. This shouldn't be allowed to happen. What was it like to be in prison knowing that you're innocent? What did you feel when you were trying to tell people you were innocent but they didn't believe you? Being in prison felt like hell. It felt like a strange land that I was forced to get accustomed to. What I realized early on was that I was fighting for my survival. From the day of my arrest to getting out, I was fighting for survival in prison on a daily basis and fighting for my freedom. My feelings were loneliness, frustration, a lot of anger, feeling like I was a nobody. Feeling like I had no one in the world that I could depend on. My main fear was that I would come out of prison and still be labeled a murderer. The fact that you can do 21 years for something you had nothing to do with and still carry that label is horrific. What was the biggest change in society/people that you found once you got out? What I found out, and I probably didn't realize before I went in, was how scared people were. Scared about everything. It threw me back because I never saw it in people before. On a small matter, the use of cell phones. I don't remember people talking like that, so I was asking my wife, who are they talking to? Even the geography of Crown Heights, where I came from, it seemed like it was sunk in, not expanding and growing. The streets looked dark and bleak to me, so it was hard to try and reorganize things in my mind. Wow, thank you for doing this, AMA. What would you say to the other people who are currently serving time for a crime they didn't commit? Try to find some type of network. You cannot do it all from prison, from behind the walls. We have to start to build, and in order to build, we have to change our thought process. A lot of prisoners know what people on the outside want and you give them that, but it's all lip service. Self-introspection is a must. If that's not taking place, you are not growing, and if you're not growing, you're more likely to make the same mistake. Also, these folks should write to us or other organizations to seek our help. No one should be spending time in prison for a crime they did not commit. Phil. What surprised you most about technology since you've been out? The cell phone is a trial in itself for me, so anything after the cell phone I leave to my wife. What is amazing to me in my mind is that I see cell phones as a weapon. There's so many people with cell phones, and I believe we are so conditioned that we only see this as a toy. Very few people maximize the use of it. But I believe we can change our habits and we may see things a little different. How much time did you spend with the actor portraying you, Keith Stanfield? Are you happy with how he represents you on the big screen? I spent about a week with Keith. He came to my house, came to see a movie with me. I like him a lot, because he's young, and he's doing what he loves. He found it early. For my role, you can't capture everything in a movie, but there's a lot that people can identify with. I want the movie to touch as many people as possible. Do you still have faith in the justice system? My feeling on the justice system is still shaken. I don't have faith in it. But what I do know is that nothing stays the same forever. You may take little dents and little hits, but the ultimate goal is for people to become more aware of their choices. I believe that we have the power to get together, organize, get a program, and institute that program. It doesn't make sense to recognize the truth and be dormant. We have to move. Man, such a bright guy that our society locked up. Jesus. I think a lot about all the human potential we lock away in cages. Cages are needed to keep violent people from harming others, but clearly that applies only to a fraction of prisoners in the US. I don't have all the answers, but I know we can do better. To elaborate, what is your current opinion on the justice system? How it's progressed, for better or worse, any comparable cases results you may have encountered, etc. I have faith in New Yorkers and people like Colin who want to fight to improve our legal system to have more justice for everyone. Because of people like Colin and Carl who are so committed to justice, I think there is optimism for progress. We've seen progress take place over the last 5 years. There were counties in New York where defendants did not have an attorney and had to negotiate plea deals themselves. But because of the Hurl Herring lawsuit the NCLO brought, we've been able to change that. Change is possible, but there's a lot more work to be done. Phil. I had a similar thing happen to me. I was arrested by a cop over possession of marijuana back when I was 18, about 10 years ago, and in his police report he lied and included that I admitted to the marijuana being mine, which I never did. The pot belonged to a person in the group to which I was with at the time, and he obviously never spoke up, instead just let me take the fall for him. I was only in jail overnight as I was bailed out the next day, but it cost me over $3,000 in legal fees to fight the case and get the charges dropped. Additionally, the main reason that I decided to drop the case was because the lawyer I hired used to work at the office and was on good terms with many of his former peers, and about 6 months prior to my arrest I had testified as a witness in an assault case that put a man away for about 8 years. He and some of his friends attacked a friend of mine with bats and almost killed him. From what he told me, it was because of this that they decided to drop the charges, as a sort of favor for helping them get the conviction, since it was my testimony that really sealed the deal on that case. I had never been in legal trouble before, and had just turned 18 a couple of months prior, so now I have this arrest on my record. Thankfully, I was able to afford representation at the time or my life, and the story I'm telling all of you might have gone very differently. All because a cop decided that trying to guarantee that his arrest would stick was more important than justice and his duty as a public servant. It is for this reason I never give any Leo the benefit of the doubt when it comes to my freedom. All it takes is for one of them to believe that you are guilty before you are ever given a chance to prove your innocence, and they can ruin your life. I'm on mobile, so I apologize for the format. The troubles I faced pale in comparison to what Op and so many other innocents are forced to endure in the land of the free. Also, financial strain aside, I'm really glad that you were also able to secure your innocence, and I'm especially glad that Op is now able to enjoy his long-deserved freedom. The justice system in this country is failing its citizens in a major way, on a daily basis, and it is a disgrace. Apologies for the rant. I just haven't spoken about this in quite some time, and your story reminded me of how frustrated and disappointed this made me with my country.
If you enjoyed this week's effective way to waste time, hit that like button and subscribe for more content like this. If you are enjoying the series, leave me a comment below. A special shout out to the content creators. You frickin' rock.